Today, Paddy Smith.
Taoiseach, it's looking inevitable that there won't be a deal wrapped up for the summit. What can the leaders talk about? Can they discuss the broad outlines of the British position? Can they discuss extensions?
Well, first of all, I don't think it's inevitable that we can't get a deal before the summit. I think what Michel Barnier said today was very clear, that it's difficult but possible to have a deal between the two negotiating teams this side of the Leaders' Summit. That means that a lot of progress needs to be made today. But I think that's doable if there is a willingness on both sides to move this process to conclusion. Of course, if that doesn't happen, well, then it leads to another debate in terms of how the leaders will respond to that in the context of whether more time will be needed or whether we can continue discussions into next week. But I think we should focus on trying to get the job done. And certainly I think that's what Michel Barnier and his task force are focused on, and I expect the UK side is the same.
Taoiseach, there seems to be sharply contrasting optimism and pessimism. The Finnish Prime Minister saying last night that there was simply no time left, but yet signals from London that we were inching towards a deal. I mean, can we have any clarity on whether optimism is prevailing?
Well, look, I think this isn't a time for optimism or pessimism, quite frankly. I think we need to deal with the facts as we see them. The negotiating teams have made progress, but it's been slow. And they will need to make significant progress today if there is to be a deal that Michel Barnier can report on tomorrow to EU capitals in advance of the Leaders' Summit. But that is what he would like to do. I also believe that is what the UK would like to see happen in terms of timelines. But it's a matter for the negotiating teams to see whether they can get that legal text in place, which deals with the politics of this issue, of course, in terms of competing demands, both from a UK perspective and an EU perspective, but also to make sure that that is a watertight legal text. So certainly, as Michel Barnier said when he walked in this morning, this is difficult, but it is possible. And I think the negotiating teams are focused on trying to make significant progress today that can be reported on tomorrow to ensure that we could potentially have the confirmation of a deal at an EU summit. But I think there's a couple of things that are clear. There will not be negotiation of text at that summit. The EU is very, very clear on that. So if there's going to be a deal at this summit, well then the task force and the British negotiating team have to finalise text. And as I said, today is a key day in terms of being able to do that in time.
Kevin Doyle, Kevin.
You've said repeatedly over recent weeks that the gap was huge between the EU side and the UK side. How big is it now, and are the Irish government happy with what's on the table if there can be legal text put around it?
Well, I mean, in the briefing we got from Michel Barnier today, I mean, he did point to progress in the last number of days where the gaps have been narrowed. You know, the UK side has introduced new text. Clearly, the meeting last week between the Taoiseach and the Prime Minister provided the backdrop for that progress in the context of both leaders seeing a pathway to a deal. In other words, they envisaged a way to get there. And the task force and the UK negotiators since then have really tried to turn that into a legal text. And that is why when Michel Barnier says, you know, now is the time to turn good intentions into legal text. That is what the two negotiating teams are focused on today. And look, I don't want to raise